And welcome to another Biddle on Saturday, November 23rd. We are officially open for business. How's everybody doing?
Doing
Good.
really
It's
good.
fantastic.
Wonderful.
All right.
B+.
I do need a confirmation from chat to say that the audio levels are okay, mine and everybody else's, and then we will continue on.
Sounds
So-
fine to me on the playback.
All right. As long as one of us is not blowing it out, like my mic is not blowing it out, or your guys are not. So we've been trying Ubuntu 19.10 this week, and I don't see Simon Quigley anywhere.
It's because he hates us, Rocco.
Is that why?
I don't think so.
No, it's not. He loves us.
Somebody hassled him one too many times about
that what
pulse
it is?
audio.
But we have Dan Simmons here, and that's all that matters. So Dan is going to take all the heat for Ubuntu today.
So, Dan, when are you fixing Pulse Audio?
Oh, great.
When he disappears, we'll know what happened.
What's happening with Pulse Audio?
Hey,
It's
so
an in-house joke.
Yeah.
all right, Zeb, I got to grab the
just
YouTube
stupid.
chat for the screen. So if you could start with the first couple.
Yep, sure. Well, unfortunately, I'm going to have to skip this week because I just had such a hectic week. I didn't have a chance to test Ubuntu, but Dan and Simon already know some of the issues that I do have every now and again with NVIDIA cards. We know Dan uses it every single day and loves it, so you'll be able to give your feedback as you answer all of the queries, Dan. So,
Yeah.
Aris, you're first up this week, my friend. Did you try Ubuntu? So you'll be able to give your feedback.
Yes, I tried Ubuntu. Everything went out pretty good. I didn't have any crashes. It was very light, highly responsive. I do have some notes that I want to have like recommendations. One thing I recommend is they either check on or check off the checkbox that says clear search upon showing the menu, because I like using the menu to launch at programs. But if the way it is right now, if you search for something, let's say like PC Man, it stays with that PC Man there. You gotta hold delete to delete every single time you want to launch something else. So it'd be great if it had that clear search upon showing menu. Also, the SDDM login page. I think it would be great if they could show like the wallpaper that they have on the desktop in there, because the gradient is kind of plain. It'd be great if they have this great background if they had that there in the SDDM login.
Yep.
Also, I wished Ubuntu had a way to tile windows by dragging them to the sides. I think they had it before. I think in the previous version. And
It was a keyboard shortcut, so it was not like a hot corner or anything like that. So
okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that the keyboard shortcuts weren't possible because I think Super or Meta is set to the search, right? Is that correct?
So yeah, the super key is set to the menu, and if you assign it to any of the tiling type shortcuts that OpenBox wants to use, then OpenBox seizes that and you can't do anything in the menu, or it just doesn't work right. So we may bring it back, or at least it may be a different shortcut key to make it happen. I mean, you can do that now technically.
Okay. Yeah, because I really do miss the shortcuts, the keyboard shortcuts, because
Yeah.
I try to use my keyboard as much as possible and not do the mouse.
Yeah,
for
makes
tiling,
sense.
opening things.
Mhm.
Overall, it's pretty good. I love how fast PC Man FM is, the QT version, and so it's like the quickest one to think of the file managers. I think it just pops up right away. And overall, I look forward to whatever comes down the pipe for Others QT in the future.
Cool.
Excellent. Thanks very much indeed. Eric, my good friend, you are up.
Hello. So I have used Ubuntu. I've tested it as part of the beta process, and I've looked in on it over time. I'm not really going to give a lot of feedback on my experience with it, just simply because the overall take I have is that it's I mean, there's just some rough edges for me as a user when I use it, things that I notice. I mean, I guess a couple of the things I could say is you guys have a really good user manual, but I really wouldn't know that because there's no link for it anywhere. And if you could just put a shortcut to that online documentation, I think that would be a good start. I was able to figure out how to add shortcuts to the launcher because it isn't self-evident, especially, and I figured this out, if you search for something, you can't drag that search result down. So I was confounded by the instructions because I'm like, it just says to grab it and drag it, and that's not possible. So what you have to actually do is browse for the thing, and then you can drag it, and it works. So it's just little things like that. So if that user guide was there, which is really well written and seems to be maintained well, I was able to find all of my things. I guess the bigger questions I have around Ubuntu, and I've alluded to this in the past, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Dan. This may not be the best venue for this, but a couple things come to mind. One is when I think of Mate, Ubuntu Mate in particular, I think of the very close connection, obviously, between the Mate desktop and then that distribution. And then I think of Ubuntu and LXQT. Would you say that this is the primary distribution for LXQT? I mean, is this the type of same situation where you have someone that's on the Ubuntu team that is like a direct contributor to LXQT and there's a symbiotic relationship there? Or are you just sort of downstream from that and kind of just taking what they have ready when they have it?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I would say that for the most part, we are what you would consider a downstream, although, we still do some contributions upstream too, for various different things. But it's not the same. Yeah, it's not like LXQT is developed in Ubuntu and, starts there first. It's probably more in tune. I mean, the lead developers for LXQT are probably running either a Debian based or an Arch, Manjaro base for the most part.
Okay, that's helpful. And the other question that I struggle with, and you and I have talked about this personally, and I'm not trying to like make this a thing, but I would love it if the project could be maybe a little more articulate about what is Ubuntu's purpose, what is its goal, what is it, what is the sort of, what are they trying to accomplish? Me as a user, when I'm looking at all the different possible options, why would I be interested in Ubuntu specifically, but then maybe overall like LXQT? And yes, it's lightweight, it's based on Qt. There's some technical reasons that I think maybe a more advanced user might see more readily. So that's more just feedback than anything. I don't expect you to answer that question here, but
sure.
And that's something, like I said, I would be happy to help work on some of that with you guys if you'd like as well. So that's really my takeaway is I think it has a lot of positive aspects. It's a fully functioning system. It's got lots of good choices that are made. It's visually appealing. There's absolutely no reason why you couldn't use it. It's more around, for me, again, why am I making this choice? So
sure. I can tell you why I choose it. I mean, that's not necessarily the reason it exists, I guess, obviously. For me, it's simple. It's all the things that you mentioned. It's lightweight, easy to use. The settings are not all over the place. And it's Qt based, so the apps that are available work well. Yeah, I mean that those are the reasons I use it personally.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, thanks for that. Yeah, that's I didn't run into any kind of errors, no problems. Like I said, just some little confusing bits, but that's just the differences between desktop environments. So yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
I did run into certain issues while running it, and none of them were showstoppers that kept me from trying it. But when I put it on a USB, I booted off USB, and if I booted using the UEFI entry in the menu, it would have a kernel panic. If I use the regular, just boot off the USB without the UEFI, it booted fine. So I was able to get into it, looked at it. I did have the whole issue where it wouldn't pick up the Wi-Fi driver. So when you go into the driver manager, it would only give you the selection of continually using the manual driver that wasn't there, basically. Like it wasn't connected. It didn't have the driver, but it only gave you the option to continually using that. So that is one issue that I had. But, the whole desktop itself was, extremely quick. It's a very nice looking desktop. It's not my style of menu. It's not something that, like overall, and I'm saying I start at the menu, looking at, the desktop itself, and then I go on to other parts of it. It's not my style of a desktop, but it's for people that like that style, it's awesome. And for all of those reasons that you guys just mentioned. So, Barbara, what did you think?
I was like really busy this week, so I didn't get a chance to look at it.
Okay, perfect. Paul, did you get a chance to check out Lubuntu?
Yeah, I did check it out very shortly, though. So I really, I liked it. The very first thing I went into the settings and found where it said activate single click. That was cool.
Well, that was one I didn't mention, Paul, because I looked at that setting and I was, I went to find it and I saw it, got it, because obviously single click is superior. But you have to, I guess you have to log in and log out in order for that to take effect. So, and there are other settings like the DPI changes and everything else that you need to log out and log back in to take effect. So, yeah, but I did.
So yeah, overall, it's a good distro. I liked it.
That's sort of a telling thing, right? You can just jump into it and use it, and figure things out pretty quickly. So absolutely. Pizza, how are you, sir? You're muted.
I'm doing pretty well. I didn't try out Lubuntu.
Okay.
But I have heard of it, and I looked at was it 18.10?
Yeah.
I looked at one of them.
Yeah, that was the first release that we had with Alex.
Yeah.
A lot of bug fixes since then. So.
But yeah, I don't really like the menu for LXQT, but that's my only complaint with it. I like how there's a search thing on the bottom, but I don't really like how it's like more like a Windows 95 style menu. I don't really think LXQT is very good for like a Windows layout. I think it's better if you put the panel on the top and add a dock and use it kind of as a Mac OS layout. In that case, then that's where LXQT really shines for me.
Okay. Excellent. Peter, good evening.
Well, thank you. I don't have a lot to report. I did install it last week on hardware, but because it's the week before Thanksgiving, the food bank has been extremely busy. And this morning I was busy keeping my wife happy by upgrading her Windows PC. There's a whole story behind that. So I've not really had time to get back to Lubuntu, sorry to say.
Okay.
But it did install fine.
Good. All right, and Joe, over to you, my friend. Did you have a chance to do it this week?
Actually, I was on it quite a bit today. I've got a little bit of a list written here. Nothing horrible or anything like that. It's very pleasant. I did start try it in the VM initially just to look at it, and I was amazingly surprised at how snappy and how it loaded up real well, and it ran like as if it was native on my machine on there. So I thought, well, let me put it on real hardware today. So first, that's what I noticed was the installation was very clean, simple, and quick, both in the VM and the laptop. The only difference was when you had to do a reboot cycle after installing it on the VM, it was slow booting up, so I'm not going to put any credence at that. The visual part of it, I think, is very pleasing. I like the dark theme. And especially, I like when you go in and well, it's a darker theme, but then when you go into the real dark theme setting, I like that better where it's kind of black background because it's easier for these old eyes to see a lot easier. The one thing I did pick up on when I try to right click like you do on most distros to want to change the wallpapers, I couldn't find anything like that. You know, it's a preferences, takes you like to the file manager or something like that. So that was one little thing. I mean, most of the stuff that I'm going to talk about here are kind of a little niggles, I guess, if you want to put it that way. There's one what's that?
Paper cuts?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. This one, though, I think is a little bit more of a deeper cut, if you want to put it that way, because I think in today's world, you know, a lot of the distros, for whatever reason, and this is one of them, doesn't have your numlock activated by default. And I went to try to install numlocks, which I do on a lot of them through the terminal, and it wouldn't do it. So finally I thought, well, let me do some searching around and see if there's something in there. And I did find it. I did find a way to turn it off, but it just seemed, again, I think a lot of this, if you take it with a grain of salt, because it's what we're used to doing is one thing, and then you're trying to adjust to something a little different here. But that was just something that kind of confused me a little bit. Searching the keyboard, it says, excuse me, I got lost here a second. LXQT, appearance configuration. This is not even anything that's really even a niggle or paper cut. It's kind of it's like in today's world, why would we have the option for a widget style for like Windows 3.1 look? I mean, that was just kind of funny to me. It was odd. It's not like it's a problem. I just thought it was kind of odd that something like that would be in there. I ran HTOP. I'm running it now. It's literally idling anywhere from 404 megs to like 410. I mean, it's really lightweight distribution. I like that very, very much. Software, it seems like they got a fair amount of nice software in there. It would be nice to see GIMP put in there by default, because I think there are a lot of people that use that. And especially if you're a new user, I think that would be nice to have it introduced that way. The other thing is I couldn't figure out how to either add, or like Adam was, or Eric, excuse me, was talking about adding or lock something to the taskbar. I mean, you know, normally you just either drag it or you'll search it in the menu and you'll right click and say add, you know, pin to the panel. I should say, rather, it's called the taskbar, but panel. Mm-hmm. And I still right now to this point couldn't figure out how to do that.
It took me about a half an hour. Yeah, it took me about half an hour, Joe. It is, you can't search and drag. You have to find the entry and grab it and then put it down there.
And it is a bit fussy. You do have to kind of get it into the right spot in the tray down there too, or else it won't add.
Well, and maybe that's what I was running into, because I tried dragging it and it just had the little like circle with the crossbar through it, and it would throw it back. I was able to drag stuff out onto the desktop.
Yeah. But
it seemed more cumbersome than what it should be especially for light distribution. Those are things you kind of expect, I think. And
it is an issue. But if you do drag it to the right section there, you'll get the little green check or whatever. And
okay, I'll try that.
We are looking to comment on that. We are looking at, you know, having a menu item so you can go in and you know, add things manually, if you will, in like a menu item.
The other thing that I had today that was happening on this laptop is it seemed like most everything, not everything, but most everything I opened up large and off screen. Now I'm on a laptop, which I don't know if there's a setting in here that needs to be done or whatever, but that was right out of the box. Because I move my panel to the top. Even on the laptop, there's certain distributions I still like it on the bottom, but for this I felt better, more comfortable with it on the top. That's where I'm used to having it now. And I thought maybe that had something to do with it, but it didn't seem to. It just seemed like even when I had it on the bottom, it would open up larger and throw stuff off the window. The other thing that surprised me is I walked out for a little bit and I came back in, and the screensaver that it defaulted to, one of the first ones in the list, I almost thought that the video went haywire. It looked really, it looked all distorted to me. And I thought, oh my God, what happened here? So there's a bug. And then I thought, well, let me check the screensaver. And a lot of the images they have in there, the first one happened to be this one that looks like when the screen goes goofy. So I don't know if that's important, but it could make somebody think that there's an issue, I guess, is all it was.
Yeah, we've actually made a change there for 2004. And so we've defined defined a screensaver by default. So
okay.
Yeah.
And lastly, the only other thing is when I would search something, I'm used to, like, if I want to search for Software Center or something like that, you start to type software and it doesn't come up, and you got to go into Discover. I guess, it's something I didn't realize. I finally found that and then realized that's where it was. So again, it's a lot of what I'm used to isn't there, I suppose. But the distribution as a whole, in summary, I think it's a fantastic distribution. It's like instantaneous with everything it does. I mean, literally, there's no lag in anything opening up. And I think it's pretty polished too. So I do like it, but I think if these other little things come about and they can kind of, I guess, get things more what you're used to. And I'm not saying you have to mimic everybody else, but there's certain things I think we get used to throughout most of the distributions that are there. I think this is going to be amazing. I think you're on the right track. I think it's wonderful, and I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into it. It's fantastic. From the last time I actually physically used it on a machine, it's wonderful.
Thanks, Joe.
Excellent. Thanks very much indeed. Mitchell, welcome back.
Thank you. And thank you to Dan for being here.
Absolutely.
Ubuntu's distro I've used for a number of years now, quite a while actually, going back to 17 something. And I like it a lot. And I think Joe touched on a lot of the little paper cut issues that I've dealt with. I won't, reiterate those. And Eric touched on some of the clarifications about why would a user want to use Ubuntu. I was using 1904, and then I just upgraded to 1910. It was a smooth transition, smooth upgrade, and one thing I've noticed is reading about Ubuntu over since the transition to LXQT is that some people saying LXQT is not polished, it's not ready yet, and I've found that it's actually more polished in my experience than the LXDE, and I like that transition a lot. I like the direction that Ubuntu is going in. I like that it's not just geared towards low-end hardware anymore. You can run it in a workstation, you can use it for just about anything, and I really like that. And as a long-time user of Ubuntu, the thing that I've noticed and that's impressed me the most is that it's reliable, and I like that. It's something that it doesn't introduce all these little strange things that some distros come up with, and I can always fall back on it. It's not my daily driver, but I've always got Ubuntu going somewhere, some laptop, and yeah, just keep up the great work. I love it.
All right. Thanks, Mitchell.
Very nice. Kevin.
Hey.
What's up, brother?
Not much.
Did you get to try Ubuntu?
Just briefly. I have used it a little bit. I appreciate the simplicity of it and that it does what it does well. It's a good implementation with LXQT, and yeah, I like the direction these guys are going with it. That's about all I have to say about that.
All right, Tony. I know you had it installed before we left Biddle last week, so.
I did. That's true. I have been playing around with it quite a bit, actually. I really do like it. It's smooth. It's simple. Bit basic, but it looks good, and everything seems to work. The only problem I found with it, and I don't know whether it is anything to do with Ubuntu or whether it's Plank again, but the Plank dock does not work well with it. The theme doesn't want to change. I'm stuck with a black background border that will not go away. There's no bounce at all, but at least it's consistent with that. But other than that, everything else seems to work pretty good. I don't know that I would use it as a driver. but it's one I will keep an eye on. I'd like to see how the development comes along, especially with the 2004 release. I just really like it. Other than that, just keep going with it. That's all I can say.
Oh, thanks, Tony.
All right. Ben, you are... Oh, wait, there he is.
I'm
Hey,
here.
Ben, how you doing?
I'm all right. Yourself?
Doing well, thanks. Did you get a chance to test Ubuntu this week?
Sort of last minute I did, but what little time I had to play with it on one of my laptops. It wasn't an older machine, so it was on my System 76 Lemur like I did with Kubuntu last time. And although it did not work very well because it's a Kaby Lake laptop, and it is kind of a newer machine, not exactly. But long story short, it was great. However, it was not great for that hardware. So, like a lot of folks have said, it's best on older hardware. So, other than that, I liked it. Very easy for a new user to get into. So, yeah, it's. I'll give it 2 thumbs up. So, yeah.
Excellent. Good. Glad to hear it. Thank you for that. Dan Kelly, good to see you, sir. How are you this week?
Oh, I'm fine. I did use it some, but I didn't get to put it on real hardware. I put it in a virtual machine and looked at it. And I'm not going to go over what everybody else came up with paper cuts and so on, because I kind of experienced some of the similar things myself.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you try to customize anything?
I really didn't get into customization. I was more or less playing with already what it had. I like the fact that it idles right at 390 megabytes of RAM. That is a really good low number. That is before I even opened anything up and started playing with it. But I did play with some of the software that was in it. And because we did Plasma last week, I was more familiar with some of the software that came with this particular installation. Something that I came across was when I opened up Discover, and it is kind of in a out of the way spot, I want to say. It's not right there on the menu, but you got to hunt for it. And if you don't know what you're looking for, you ain't going to find the software installer. The software installer, I opened it up and I couldn't get a slide bar to slide the software that it featured up and down. And after playing with it for a while, I did get the click wheel to work on my mouse to roll it up and down to look at it. So that's one thing that I did come across. But other than that, it's extremely light. It doesn't take much to really make me happy. All I need is a panel, a menu, and a file manager. And then it's all about the software. If you think about it that way. I do have a laptop over here. It's Windows 7 is going to expire at the end of the year, as everybody knows. So I am kind of keeping my eyes peeled for something else to throw on it.
Okay. Yeah.
And
so when you mentioned that you couldn't find the software, were you searching and nothing was coming up in the menu, or what?
No, I was looking. If you didn't know, Discover was the software package manager. It's not like most distros put it right on the menu in a particular spot.
Mm-hmm.
And it says software or something on it. Mm-hmm. If you didn't know, Discover was its software handling device, and it is in a menu, go out and over a little bit, to get to it. That's the only thing that's tricky about it, is if you didn't know if it was Discover, you'd be clicking on a lot of stuff before you found the software installer.
Got it. Yeah, that's something I noticed, and I'm not sure how the menu works or if there's a way to improve this, but when I typed software or I typed install, Discover doesn't come up. So you do have to know.
You know what?
Yeah.
You're also right about me. I did look for some stuff to change as far as wallpaper and stuff like that. You do have to hunt for it.
Yep.
You have to go way out on like a third menu to QT themes or something like that, and it's in there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But that's...
Just before we move on to the next one, I do want to remind people that for years, Ubuntu was LXDE. And although they've been there since 1810, that's not enough time to iron out all of these little paper cuts. And the amount of work that went into it to get from LXDE to LXQT is astonishing. So the fact
If you
that it
sat
is
down and
chopped
used
up and
this for a
worked-
day, Zeb, you would get used to the way they put it together already.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
usable. It's just some things are not where they're expected to be.
Yep, but as I say, it is like in development still, as far as I'm concerned. It'll be a couple of years yet before it's the rock solid Lubuntu that we used to know of old. But it's come on an astounding way already. So yeah, good job, boys.
Well, and the proof of
Yes.
that is that it consistently all through, everybody says, yeah, it just worked, but I had to figure a couple things out. But nobody has run into the, oh, this is, I couldn't
This
even
is
use
terrible.
it. Yeah, right.
No, there was no terrible crashes or anything here.
We saved that for Rocco.
Right.
It's
No,
Rocco's job.
I'm having
I
that
did
problem
find
with
a
the
few, but-
Ubuntu team, and that's why I didn't put this on a hard drive, because I have their hard drive over there. So when they get back to me, I can work with them on their issues.
But I think a nice welcome screen would go very nice
Yep.
in there, and highlight some of the things that everybody's talked about, including where to find software and where the documentation you could go for things. That would be a big help.
Yeah, that would fix the Discover software naming problem and stuff like that, is with the welcome screen.
Yep. I can say it is something that's in the works. We've got to start on that, but we've got a lot of other things to work on too. So
Yeah, I know when you guys are doing the programming for this stuff, you're putting it together and stuff, and you ain't got it sorted out in its permanent place quite yet. You're just got it attached in certain areas so it's workable.
Good. Thanks very much indeed. Okay, Colin, did you try Ubuntu? I haven't seen a video.
Yes, I
yet.
did.
That's it.
He made
Yes,
a
I put
video.
a video out. I made a video.
yeah, did.
Oh, you gotta love
well-
YouTube and their notifications, don't you?
What Zeb said and what Rocco said.
Yeah.
Get back here. You're not getting
Yeah.
off that easy.
Yeah, that's
Get back here.
No, that's way too easy, Colin.
Oh boy,
Zeb didn't
All
even
right,
try it.
No, I've been messing around with Lubuntu, and I like the direction they're heading in. And yet, what you guys said was spot on. It's still sort of, I believe, in development. I think they're doing some really good work. There are some little things that are still there. On this release, the network thing was working. I don't know if that was changed in 1904. I can't remember because I normally try every one. But I can access my home network now, which I couldn't do before.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's awesome. I tried some theming and stuff, which is what I always like to do, and that all seemed to work okay. So although I have to say the theming out of the box looks really good, and it's starting to look very, very polished. So that's a plus. Yeah, and a welcome screen or something would be good. The other thing is the search menu never used to clear. I don't know what Aris was talking about. Was it Aris talking about the search menu doesn't clear? Or was that something else he was talking about?
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah,
menu
mine
doesn't clear.
does. Mine clears. So when I hit the Windows button, then I hit it again, whatever search was there is gone.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember you showing that on your video, and I remember that
so
being an
that's
issue in
interesting.
1810.
That's right.
But I haven't noticed it since.
No, so I'm just, there's not a checkbox for that or anything, is there? It wouldn't
There
be,
is
would
if you, or there used to be if you right mouse click the properties of
I
the
think
menu.
there is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's a
okay, so
checkbox that you can specify there.
Right. Okay. All right. So I was because I didn't experience that at all, but it's all been running well. I want to ask: is OpenBox settings meant to be a part of LXQT, or is that something that's still there at the moment and disappears in the future?
It's because we have OpenBox for our window manager. So LXQT is window manager agnostic, if you will. You could
Right.
actually pair it with any window manager you wanted. So that goes along with OpenBox, not necessarily LXQT.
So that's normal then. That'll stay. That'll stay there. Yeah.
As long as we keep OpenBox, yes.
All right. Yep.
We
I just wanted to
you know,
know.
so there's other options. You could use KWin. You could use, one of the tiling window managers if you wanted to.
Yeah.
So, yep. So as long as we keep that, then as far as I know, it'll.
Okay. I have tried KWin in the past, and it works quite well on Ubuntu, I must say as well. So,
Yep.
Look,
Is there a reason you chose OpenBox instead of KWin? Is it just for lightweight?
It is lightweight, and I think we had OpenBox underneath LXDE before that, so the transition was fairly easy in that sense. So it's kind of a progression, I would say. Yep.
Okay, so that keeps the lightweight about the distro itself as well, having that in there.
Yep.
It hasn't crashed on me. It's been running very well. I tried the email client Trajita, and I didn't. Is that how you pronounce it, Trajita?
Yeah, I think so.
Didn't have much luck with that last time. I had to go out looking for my mail. The SMTP or whatever it is for your mail. I had to go searching for that because it doesn't do that automatically.
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah.
that's the problem I had last time. I was probably having a lazy period and didn't bother with that. But seems to work all right once you got it going. So just a simple Google search found that info for me anyway. I think that was the incoming and outgoing mail
Yeah.
server name. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I just had to look that up for the Hotmail. So that worked all right anyway. So that was good. Besides that, I'm having a good experience, and also running on a very lightweight laptop. With all the things I was doing, recording the screen, I had a few tabs open in Firefox and doing a few other things. It was just didn't miss a beat. So that was pretty awesome, I must say. So that was very, very buttery smooth with all that going on. And it was only using something like 1.2 gig of memory out of 4. So
Yep.
I thought that was pretty good. And I don't know if it was that good last time, but it seemed to be pretty smooth this time. So I'm very impressed with that. And I like the direction you guys are going. I'm sure there's a lot more work to be done. And I did point out a few little things where boxes are a little bit closed up and the font's not
Yep.
showing and
Yep.
all those little things. But like Zeb mentioned, that I think that's just something that you guys are in the transition of fixing, and things don't happen straight away, and I understand that. So, but you got it looking very polished and it looks nice out of the box. So, yeah, I reckon you 1.5 thumbs up, I think, for this one, but it's
All right. That's cool.
getting there.
All right. Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks there, Colin. Steve, have you
Good
tried
evening,
Ubuntu?
everybody. I installed it on Monday, and those that were watching my stream on Monday know that I downloaded the wrong thing. I downloaded 1904. But with Dan's help, I learned how to upgrade to the next version. And we tried to watch it on a stream because I was using it from my laptop to my desktop using OBS and the NDI plugins. But I guess at a certain point where it was loading up, it kicked out the internet, and I couldn't, or the Wi-Fi, and I couldn't connect in that. It's a quick install. I swear it was like 5 minutes to install right off the bat, even 1904. But being with Calamaris and on that laptop I had to go back in and add a boot flag. But it's now an easy process for me. It looks very nice. The theming and that is pretty awesome compared to what Alex D used to be. My only, everybody's already talked about some of the other things in that. My only niggle is that tap to click is not active from the start, and getting to the settings is not a challenge, but they're not as
Sure.
Dan said, some of the things are not in the same spot. But yeah, it was. I did after cold boot. I installed HTOP and was like about 385 on memory usage, so very efficient. So thank you for your help, Dan, on showing me how to upgrade. That was
Absolutely.
cool. So,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Chicken.
Is that me?
That is you, sir. What's going on?
I am busy writing, I suppose. I've heard a lot of good things about Lubuntu, like in general, which is really nice. I gave it a try, and I've been trying every single version since they switched to LXQT, and I've been impressed with the progress that they've made. It's been said before by multiple people. It's fast. It's stupid fast. It's really, really quick. No matter what you do, you press a button and it happens sometimes before I even realize it's happened. And I really love that. And one of the things that I enjoyed was the file manager, as was mentioned earlier as well. Super quick, super clean, super simple. I did have trouble figuring out how bookmarks worked. I know in like Nautilus, you can just drag a folder over to the side. That doesn't seem to work right now. But Dan was super helpful, and he told me that you can go up to the top to the bookmarks part of the menu there and just add it from there, which is super cool because I have way too many things in unorganized places, and it's nice to be able to just click on them. So this is it's definitely a wonderful thing to have. And by default, it doesn't seem like there's any compositor enabled, which also contributes to why it's so quick. There's no extra stuff being done that doesn't necessarily need to be done. I do find that it is very easy to break the compositor, though, and do things you probably shouldn't do, because I apparently didn't know what I was doing. So just be careful when you change like compositing settings, because I think it was the X like render time that I had changed, and its default set to something super low, like 0.06, and I was like, I wonder what happens if I just set it to 1. And well, the answer is nothing like happens ever again. So don't do that. But it was an easy fix. I just TTY'd, killed was it Compton?
Compton.
Or
Yeah, it's
Compton,
Compton.
yeah.
Yeah.
Killed Compton, and then went back in and fixed it. But one of the great things about it is it's super, super flexible, but don't do things if you don't know what they do.
That's with any distro.
Yeah, a little bit of user error there. That wasn't a good choice, but overall, it was a wonderful experience, and I'm actually going to be upgrading 2 of our laptops that have Lubuntu 1904 on them to 1910 now. So
nice.
That's what happens when you used to GNOME in elementary. You can't
Yeah.
customize anything in it.
Right. I can't really break anything, and now it's like, oh, this is bad.
Well, the file
Well,
manager
chicken.
is fast, but there's one thing that would make the file manager open quicker.
Don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say it.
Nate.
Hi there.
How are you?
Fantastic. You?
I am doing excellent. Have you tried Lubuntu 1910?
I have always tried Lubuntu, I should say. But first time doing 1910 this week. So I enjoy Lubuntu. I've liked LXQT since it was Razer QT. Does anybody remember that?
Yep.
No. Oh
Way back.
yeah. Look at
Way
that.
back. Yeah, way back.
Holy cow. Wow. Yeah. Then when those projects merged,
Mhm.
I'm kind of a fan of. I've been a fan of LXQt for pretty much since it started. So I tested on and off. Now, there's like the layout I really like. It's the configuration set, the LXQT configuration center, I think is tip top. It's very simple. You can get to what you got to get to. Something that that Ubuntu has, and I haven't seen this on the Ubuntu's before, or maybe I just didn't see it. I didn't look. The G alternatives. Did anyone play with that? No. Yes. No. No. Okay. Very cool. We can. It's a Plasma has like a little bit of this. So basically, you can set your default applications, but not just your applications. You can set your default everything. So you can set your default editor, like it's set to Nano, but you can make it Ed or Vim or whatever you want. But there's tons and tons of options. You can really dig into that. If you have other window managers, very easily can switch it over. It's a really nice system. If you like to really kind of get your fingers messy, sticking it in the pie or whatever, this is a great place to start to mess around. And I haven't seen this before, and I really like it. Now, I like that it's lightweight. I'm a big fan of lightweight because I have a lot of old garbage that I like to keep running, well beyond its expiration date. I like to, get the paddles together and shock that thing back to life with something like Ubuntu or whatever. And I know, so I ran first time running a VM on my my big AMD workstation that I put together, and ran great. Used just over 300 megabytes on a fresh install with nothing running, like just opening up a terminal to check and see where the memory's at. So it was like 308 megabytes or something like that. Just over 300. I can't remember the number because I got hit in the head and I didn't write it down. The Lubuntu Arc looks really good, but I wish it was like an Arc Dark instead, because and I didn't search for if maybe there was one a theme, but I don't like the whiteness. I like the dark when it comes to but that's just me, that's just me. And I couldn't get the white to go away. Now I did install Kwin because OpenBox just doesn't cut it for me. I like all the Kwin accoutrements, and that only adds about 34 megabytes of additional memory usage. So it's really, for me, that's worth the expense of 34 megabytes of just the nice glossy Kwin experience. I really only have one criticism, just one is where's the firewall? There was no firewall tool. Yeah, there's no GUI for it. There's no, like, unless if I go into it, it wasn't actually activated by default. So that's really my only criticism.
Gotcha.
It's off, and there's no tools to actively get to it. And Eric and I, we kind of talked about this before, but not to throw you under the bus, Eric, but it's a Michelin, so it's a really nice tire. Okay. There's the Linux is always touted for being a secure operating system, or it's more secure. You're better off on Linux than you are with other things because it's secure. But we've buried, very often, parenthetically, we've buried like the firewall settings very frequently and we have no indicators in the corner. Now, Firewall D has an applet that you can have in the corner that tells you what's going on, which I've been playing with that. So if you can install Firewall D instead of UFW, that's a win.
There's GUFW. I'm not sure if there's a Qt version for that or not, but there is a GUI that you can install.
It just seems odd to me that, and this is not a Lubuntu specific problem, but because of Eric, I've started searching for this now a little bit more emphatically, is seeing what is the status of the firewall of whatever system I'm installing.
I think,
and I'm seeing a very troubling number. Yeah, very troublingly, they are all set to off.
Yeah.
So if you're taking your computer around and going to a coffee shop and you don't know what your computer's, if your ports are being beat on. I mean, you're fine when you're home, when you should be behind a decent firewall, but
right.
If you're taking it out, if you're going out on the town with your computer, it could be it could spell some trouble for you.
And any of you guys that do want to fiddle with firewall stuff and it's not built in, there's an application called GUFW, which is a really simple firewall management tool that will work on just about any distro.
But it should be installed by default, shouldn't it?
I think
UFW,
so.
the back end is installed.
Yeah.
And so if you
just off.
did if you just enabled it, it would just be on.
Yeah.
And it would work.
Right. I'm saying, like, software centers are cool, getting my applications, they're awesome, love it. But why is that front and center over your firewall? That just does not seem to.
Because the firewall blocks my Minecraft server.
That's fine. I'm okay with that, actually.
So
it's a good question. You pose a good question. It's a good PSA. Everybody should turn them on. I agree.
Yeah. So anyway,
I was going to say, with brand new routers these days, do you need to run a software firewall?
There's firewall on the network level, and then there's like firewall on the device level. It's not bad to run them on both, really. But I doubt most people really are doing the network level stuff anyway.
How about we save that firewall conversation for after Lubuntu?
Sounds good.
Then we'll get into it.
Anyway, that was another thing. But otherwise, I love Lubuntu. I think it's one to watch. It's I see all the merits of Lubuntu. I like it. I think I like XFCE, but I think Lubuntu just needs a little bit more polish because XFCE has been around since the dinosaurs. It needs a little more polish, and I think that it's pretty much going to take XFCE a run for its money. So competition.
Strong words. Yeah, strong words. Okay. Well, thanks for that, Nate. Ricky, you're being attacked by a fuzzy snake. Oh, it isn't a fuzzy snake. It's a cute cat. What do you know? Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah. My experience with Ubuntu has been pretty awesome. I've used it for a brief time in the past for a little bit, just to have a lightweight operating system. At that time, I was using LXDE on it, but LXQT has been pretty much amazing. I mean, combining LXDE with the QT is just an amazing architecture. I can get used to it very easily. Right now, it's pretty much in a basic Windows-like environment, which is what I'm completely used to with my workflow. I like the workspace management. I also like the notification center. I mean, the icons for it are just breathtaking, amazing. The settings and the theming, outstanding. I can change the background on it. I can pretty much make it look like KDE if I wanted to. But other than that, I mean, Zoom works great. Firefox amazing. I mean, what more can I really say? I mean, I love Ubuntu, and that's really all I need to say.
Great. Excellent. Yes. I mean, and that's the experience we're hearing, like I said, from a lot of people, is it works, which is what you hope for, right? And that's what you're looking for. So, all right. Excellent. Thanks, Ricky. Mr. Steve, Mo West, are you there, sir?
Yeah, how's my audio?
You sound fine. Good to see you. How are you tonight?
Oh, pretty good. I just wanted to jump on real quick. I can't stay real long, but since Dan is here, I thought I'd ask my question.
Sure.
I have used Ubuntu. In fact, Dan, you and I have kind of gone back and forth. I was using it as one of our main machines, doing all the presentation work at our church here.
Yep.
And but I just recently switched off of it because of an issue that I reported back in 1810. And back then it was kind of stated that it wasn't a problem that the development team really wanted to work on. And I don't know, I was just wanting to see if that had changed at all. When you plug in an external projector, is there any thought among the team of auto detecting that and then changing the resolutions?
So the monitor management, if you will, is something that Upstream is actually looking at and looking at making some changes to. I'm not sure exactly what all that entails. That's Upstream, but it's something I think we need to look at whether it gets implemented upstream or not. Probably we need to make a better way that you can quickly go through your monitor settings, kind of like any, like even if it's a shortcut key and that sort of thing. On Windows, you can do, your Windows key and P or whatever to go through your projector settings. Even something like that would probably help you, I think, in your situation a lot, if that makes sense. And so if we had something like that, I think it would be good.
It would be nice. Like I just switched to Ubuntu Mate on that machine. And when you plug in an external monitor, like a projector, it automatically detects the resolution and sets it up with an extended screen so that when you do a presentation, everything just works right and opens up correctly.
Before Nate has a fit, what are you going to say, Nate?
I was going to recommend ARandR. It's a very nice interface that's Qt based for configuring your display. So when you plug it in, it's not automatic, but it allows you to lay it out just as you want it. You can turn things on and off. It's a very basic but very powerful, like appearance wise. It doesn't have like the flashbang. Like it would never make it on Elementary. It just wouldn't. But it's very, very utility and it's awesome. So you may actually solve your problem with Ubuntu for you and your situation just by installing ARandR. I don't know if it's available actually in the Ubuntu repository. No,
I think it is because Bodhi Linux used it.
Okay,
but
try that.
Yeah, that actually, they have a monitor setup utility in Ubuntu that works fine for me. But the trouble was I went on vacation for a Sunday and the volunteers couldn't figure out that utility, and it was not very easy for a new user. For someone more technical like me, it was no problem at all. In fact, with that little switcher utility, I could get the screens set up in, less than 15 seconds, just the way I wanted them.
Yep.
But it's not a great interface for a non-technical user.
I know there was some stuff on the draft board to change that interface that you're talking about around a little bit. So maybe it'll be a little more user friendly too.
Steve, I have a recommendation for that. It's called a 3-ring binder with those little sheets, as plastic sheets, and you have a bunch of troubleshooting stuff. You have to do it. You have to spell it out because Post-it notes.
That's what I gave them, Nate. Instead of following my very detailed page of directions, they decided to change the input on the projector, which of course really messed them up.
Oh, good call.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Chris, you're up. Did you try Ubuntu?
Yes, good evening. Audio check real quick.
Yes, fine, mate.
Okay, good. Yeah, I spent a week playing around with it, trying to break it. Couldn't break it. And except for on the install, the usual problems with getting the file system installed. Ended up having to use fdisk to mark the boot partition as the bootable, or the place to start, I guess you could say, mark as the boot partition. But anyway, other than that, I put it through its paces. I mean, I was really running some processor intensive stuff, and what I found was just a single core computer seemed to keep up without a problem. I mean, it would go up into 98%, but there was no lag. And then once it got done with the intensive stuff, it went right back down. And so I'm really impressed with the way the system manages the resources, where you could have some pretty old hardware still sitting there with 2 gigabytes of memory and not be lagging on a lot of things. So other than that, I didn't really try to run or create any programs or anything like that. But I mean, with what I was running, probably wouldn't be an issue if I had. So with that, I don't really have a whole lot more to say about it.
All right, good stuff.
All right, Dan, we mentioned here about, Eric had mentioned, and I'm going to point out Eric. He mentioned about having a more transparent use case for Ubuntu.
Mm-hmm.
What is the use case for Ubuntu? Like, what is the target user for you guys? Is it for just general purpose everybody? Is it for new users? Is it for people who just like the older paradigm? What is it? What is the use case?
Yeah, I would say it's for anybody that is comfortable in the I guess you call it the older paradigm. The simple sort of get up and running, nice and easy sort of system. Not a whole lot of flair necessarily, but it's still customizable. So you can still do some things with it, and you can change your panels around and add stuff. I think it's simple enough for a new user to use, but I use it every day, so I'm probably not the best judge of that, right?
Right.
You could probably drop me in front of anything, and I'd probably figure it out eventually. So that's my thoughts. I think we've made a lot of changes to make it a lot more user friendly from when it first got released. So that's my thoughts on it.
Colin, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Dan, is there a way of changing, just talking on what Nate was talking about, or touching on that subject, where it comes to changing the widget's dark theme in the window. Is that possible or not yet, or is that locked to GTK or something?
Well, yeah. So there's different settings, obviously, for the GTK stuff versus the Qt
Yep.
stuff. And it is
As
possible.
for a dark
Yeah.
theme across the board, you can do that.
You can. You would have to have a GTK theme to do that with for your GTK apps, and for the Qt stuff, I would recommend Cavantum, which is
Right.
is kind of a overall Qt sort of theme. It's pretty. It's not for the new user for sure, because it's not the most straightforward thing, but it will do exactly what you want and what you're asking
That's
about.
that's what Ferran's using, Kvantum. He's using
Yep.
that in his next. Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah.
I'll
Yep.
have to give that a try then. So you have to try and match up themes, or Kvantum actually matches them for you? I can't remember how that works.
It does all the Qt stuff. It won't do your GTK stuff. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. No worries.
Dan Kelly. Oh, sorry,
I had a
Colin. Go ahead.
question.
No, it's all right. Yeah, Dan, it's all right. It's okay.
I got a question
Dan?
for Dan Simmons.
Yeah.
When I was playing with the Discover Software Center, when you first open it up, it's got featured software it shows you.
Mm-hmm.
It shows you KDE Plasma in that menu. What happens if you install that?
Well, then you'd install Plasma alongside your Ubuntu, I'd guess. I had not seen that. Obviously, since they're both Qt based, you can install any of the Plasma, applications.
Because I clicked on it to see what would happen, and it killed the VM.
Oh, okay.
It won't get to the login screen now.
Okay.
But I was just wondering if you were aware that it was in there and what its intentions were supposed to be.
Well, I hadn't seen that before, so yeah.
Right.
Well,
Any other final thoughts on Ubuntu?
I wanted to just make a quick point to Dan there.
Yeah.
So, Dan Kelly, but so Dan Simmons had said that they're using OpenBox, but LXQT is window manager agnostic. So something that Nate actually wrote up on his blog, and I tried it as well, is you can install KWin and use that as your window manager as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then also even have KDE settings. So you can sort of piecemeal in parts of the KDE stack if you want to use some of that functionality. And that's going a little beyond just running Ubuntu out of the box, but there are definitely ways to sort of mix and match and bring in pieces of Plasma that you want to use instead of either OpenBox or some of the default applications that are in Ubuntu. So it's pretty extensible once you get into it if you want to go down that path. And I like the fact that it is kind of, well, I want that part. Okay, I can bring in that piece.
And
maybe it's 10 or 12 packages.
When I was looking at the thing, just looked like it was a Lubuntu to Kubuntu converter. That's the kind of what's going on in the back of my head, because here's this KDE Plasma in the midst of all this other featured software.
Yeah, you probably don't want the whole Plasma package. I mean, you don't want the whole Plasma package. You would probably just want parts of it. But you can, the only point I'm trying to make is that it is extensible in the sense that you can bring in pieces of it and then use those instead. Like if you absolutely wanted to use Dolphin, you could use Dolphin. And it's going to bring in a bunch of dependencies to do it, but you can do it.
Yeah, I've done that with Nemo quite a few times where I've used somebody's system and they don't have access to root in the file manager like Dolphin does. You can sudo apt install Nemo, and there you go. You have something that'll get you around in the root.
Yeah. That's the beauty of Linux.
Yep.
Anybody else for Ubuntu?
Yeah, I think I'll install KWin during the week and see how that runs on this laptop here. Because I did try it once before. I think I even put it on video on one of the previous releases. And it's actually brings just a better, more, what can you say, bling bling to the environment sort of thing. So, yeah. I can't remember how many dependencies it brings in, but I'm not sure if it was too many, but it did run quite well with it.
It's not 3 or 4. I mean, it's a couple dozen.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That is our take on Lubuntu 1910. I just want to say thank you to Dan, for your hard work in Lubuntu. And all of the devs, Simon Quigley and everybody else that is a part of that team. It's not something that I'm going to use, but it's obviously a very popular distro. So thank you for your hard work.
Well, thank you. And our team is definitely growing, and it's good to see. So, hopefully that gets us some more momentum.
Yep. All right, we have to pick a new distro. And, okay, so I did look back on what we picked before. And originally, and maybe somebody can verify this for me while I'm here talking about it, but I looked back. Originally, I had said we weren't going to try Ubuntu because we had just tried it recently.
Correct.
But, I mean, unless I'm wrong, the last time that I see Ubuntu being tried was for the 1904 release, which we...
That was on March the 4th.
Which we
May the 4th. May the 4th.
Which we also tried all of the other Ubuntu versions as well then. So it's probably not accurate for me to say we just tried Ubuntu, so we shouldn't try it now. So I think Ubuntu should be put back into the mix of the next ones we're going to try. Just saying. Unless I'm wrong that we tried it in between then somewhere.
No, I think that's what I see as well. Since I'm the one maintaining the list. Yeah.
As am I.
Right now, I am really interested in Zorn OS Lite. So,
yeah, we're on Ubuntu still at the moment.
Yeah. So we got to get through the Ubuntu. So we have Studio yet. We have Ubuntu now. We have Budgie and Kylan. So
we're doing Kylan.
Kylan was very interesting last time I tried it.
So let's at least try. Let's at least pick one out of the first 3.
So we did Budgie.
I'm voting for Budgie.
Yeah, we did Budgie in April. So that's the longest
away,
furthest away.
What about Studio? How long was that then?
Go ahead, Joe.
That was also in May.
Yeah, that was in May as well. If only there was a web page where we could all look at this together.
You mean a Discourse page, something like that?
Yeah,
maybe you should put the link
on the website.
in the YouTube.
Maybe I'll just go ahead and paste that in there, and you guys can click on it and look at it.
The thing I would say about Studios, we know that they always tend to lag behind all the rest of the Ubuntus. I personally am a fan of it, so I would like to obviously see it being done. But I guess maybe it's one of those that we put out toward the last because it is. I do see they have 1910 out there, so.
Well, we're going to get to it. There's no question about it. But is everybody okay trying Budgie?
Yeah, I'd like to do Budgie.
Yeah, Budgie's. I tried it a couple times already, and like I said, I've tried all of them.
Right.
Budgie is one of my favorite desktops, so I'm willing to use Ubuntu Budgie because I haven't used Budgie in quite a while, and I need another taste of it.
Budgie also does something.
Never used it.
Budgie does something
You've
really
never
cool
used
too.
Budgie?
No.
I'll give it a shot. It's definitely worth trying. They
Are
replace.
you willing to listen to me when I come back with a report?
Dan, I come here to listen to you specifically.
Purposely.
Believe it.
Just to listen to you.
Just to listen to you.
Dan, I just want to say that that once you try Budgie, your life is going to be changed.
That's what I'm afraid of.
For the better or worse?
No, look, I will say that
Awesome distro.
Ubuntu Budgie has some of the best defaults of any of the distros out there. I mean,
I'd agree.
And it is beautiful.
It is a beautiful distro.
Budgie on Solus, though.
And I know Peter's going to disagree, but it even beats Solus Budgie.
You know why?
Words don't exist.
You know why?
It does. It does.
Peter.
I have
Solus is
why.
unique and Budgie is unique. Put the 2 together, fantastic.
I have a good reason why. They decided, I think it was in 1904, that might have been 1810. They replaced GNOME files with Nemo as their default file manager.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, they did.
Who did this?
Ubuntu Budgie. Yep.
Wow.
And
The best
also,
file
it had
management out there.
this change also allows for desktop icons.
Double click
You
by
might have-
default as well.
You might have to tweak this one, Rocco. You might have to tweak this one, but for Budgie.
Well, look, Ubuntu Budgie 1910 is what we're going to try. So,
I would say Nemo is a pretty good file manager. So
very
I'm-
good.
Nemo's awesome.
Nemo's my favorite right now.
Nemo
the,
is
cinnamon
best
one, right?
file manager on the planet.
Nemo
right,
is
right,
the
Rocco?
And here's a
second
secret.
best
Here's a
file
secret
manager on the
tip for
planet.
you. Because Budgie maintains Nemo on any Ubuntu distro, you can install Nemo because of the Budgie team. It's out there. So
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Yep.
That is amazing.
All right. That's what we're going to do. Ubuntu 1910. You can try it out with us. Join a Telegram group during the week and get feedback from people who are trying it out. And a lot of times people will offer issues and problems that they're having. And you will have immediate fixes because there are so many helpful people in the Telegram group. So, but
Somebody got a link?
I will get you a link. But let's go back to that firewall question. And the question was, I believe, Zeb, you had the question, do you need a firewall? Right?
Being as today's routers will protect you most of the times anyway.
Yes. Well, so here Nate made the disclaimer that on your home network, because, and Zeb, to your point, you are once removed from forward-facing internet, right? You are abstracted. You have a public-facing IP that's on the router, and it itself has a firewall built in. But if you go anywhere outside of your network, now your system is connected into you don't know what. And that's where a firewall really, and I'm getting this from the conversation you guys had with Bo on Destination Linux. Because, and I mean, not that I didn't already know the importance of a firewall, but if you listen to him, he was saying, first and foremost, the absolute protection between you and any network is the firewall that's installed on your system. And that was germane to the conversation about VPNs. But that's where it really comes into play. And Nate and I started talking about it, and we thought, well, how many of the distributions actually have a firewall installed and enabled by default? And
OpenSUSE does.
yes, OpenSUSE does, but
yes, it does.
Yeah, but there's very few. It's probably the exception to the rule.
Right. None of the none of the Ubuntu's do. So it's there. It's easy enough to install. It's just not there by default. So.
Well, on Ubuntu Mate, it's there, but it's not turned on, so you don't have to download anything.
Right.
You don't
Most
have
of
to, yeah.
Now, when we're talking firewall, are we talking SE or
just
third
UFW
environment?
UFW is good enough for most people. I mean, it doesn't have to be. That's the thing with UFW is it actually makes it very easy. You pick a profile, and there's several there already for you. And if you need to, you can add overrides for things. But the profiles themselves are a good set of defaults. And UFW is used on Ubuntu servers. So, I mean, UFW is a good firewall system. It's just how you set it up and add rules. And GUFW is adding that user-friendly layer to it. So it's actually a really good place to start.
When you install GUFW and you click the on button, do you need to then go in and configure the firewall, or is that just a generic blanket on firewall that will protect you?
For most people, you really don't have to, but one of the other nice things they have is when you do have to add something as an exception, they have configuration options for just about every kind of application or service or whatever it is that needs to get through that firewall. So if you go in to add an exception or a rule, you can pick whether you're specifying it explicitly, or you're going to pick from a category, or you're going to pick from a specific application. And it really is pretty straightforward to just sort of say, okay, SSH is being blocked. I'm going to go and look under, that option. There it is. Click it, add it, boom, I'm done.
It's not as straightforward as that, though. From my experience, every time I went to go on my home network, because I've got an external hard drive attached to the modem, you need to put the IP address of the modem. Otherwise, anything that you do that's the simple way doesn't work. So I found that way works. I don't know if that's the correct way to do it, but that was within the exceptions.
Yeah, and Eric, can you clarify what you mean once you go outside your network? Because I'm on my computer and I connect to the internet via my router, So my router is protecting me. So when am I going to take this behemoth outside of my network?
Speaking laptop or mobile, Zeb, I believe. If you're going to a coffee shop,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, then 100%. Then you need A, a
Right.
VPN, in my opinion, and B, a firewall. But the average home user, you're behind a NAT firewall. That should be more than sufficient.
Right.
And the average user won't have a clue what you just talked about going into GUFW and making exceptions. They'll suddenly go, why can't I download my Linux torrent? It's blocked. I don't know what's going on.
You know what I did when I was using OpenSUSE for a while? I couldn't get my Minecraft server to work, and this is why I brought it up earlier. I had no idea what was wrong with it, and I was like, it's just not working. All the ports are there, they're open. Like the specific port is allowing connections, and nothing's happening. And then it was like, oh, we're gonna put a firewall here that also stops it. And the problem is that OpenSUSE is a very flexible distro when it comes to network management, but it is not a simple process to adjust the firewall settings in OpenSUSE. It was a mess. So I feel like if it's going to be in there by default, like it's nice that OpenSUSE has it enabled, but I mean, it's the reason why tools like GUFW exist is because they're a lot more usable without a networking certificate.
So does
OpenSUSE
GUFW
uses firewall.
Go ahead, Nate.
It says it uses firewall D by default, and I actually install the other firewall D tools as well, which I think OpenSUSE should install by default. They should do that. That's something they don't do. But specifically, they have an applet in the corner, so you can actually change. Because the issue you probably ran into was you might have changed the rules for different profiles. If you don't like, for instance, it defaults to public, which everything is locked down.
Yeah.
So you have to actually set it to a different profile, like home profile or trusted network or whatever you want.
Interesting.
And then that's when you actually set your rules there, because now by default, now when I go to a file when I'm home with this computer and I go, my firewall rules are very permissive. I still have a firewall up, but as soon as I take it someplace else, everything is locked down and it automatically does that for me. I don't know if GUFW does that or UFW does that automatically or not, but OpenSUSE does that. So you're right. It is a little bit more complicated, but that like the granular control makes it so that I can set different rules for if I'm at work or if I'm in a coffee shop or wherever and so forth. And then it notifies me of these changes as well.
Now, GUFW, does that offer any kind of notifications of any kind if it blocks something, or is it just blocking it in the background?
No, it
Just
doesn't.
blocks it.
It logs it though, so at least you have that.
Yeah.
So the best, so we can say here that the best use for a firewall would be for a laptop when you're using someone else's Wi-Fi or something like that. Pretty much, is it?
Yeah. Yep. No, I agree with that.
Maybe.
Absolutely.
If you're at home and you have your router, that's pretty much a firewall that keeps everything coming inside as long as all your ports are closed to begin with. So that's much better because it can be turned off easily like a software firewall. But if you're outside your home network, that's different. You do need a software firewall.
And this is how I use it on my laptop. Basically, I just go in, there's 3 profiles, public, office, and home. Home is the default. While I'm at home, I either just turn it off or I leave it on home. And the permissiveness is such that it just allows pretty much everything on a home network. I mean, it's not blocking anything. But if you switch to the public one, then it just sets a more restrictive rule set. It blocks everything it leaves the essential things open and available. And again, if I'm in a coffee shop or a hotel, I don't want or need any kind of access from anything coming into this system. And that's really what it's about. Firewall is not really so much. I mean, it's helpful if you had like a malware or some kind of nefarious process on your system that was trying to reach out and somehow you wanted to block outgoing. But for the most part, even the most restrictive policies and profiles in here allow outgoing for everything. It's the incoming side of things that you really have to worry about because that's where someone could be port scanning you or trying to look for a vulnerability. And I'm not trying to say that by not having it on, you're immediately inherently, vulnerable to every little thing in the world. There are people in airports, in coffee shops, in hotels. They're just people that are trying to find vulnerable systems. And this is one more thing that honestly, it takes me 10 seconds to turn it off and on. and I'm aware of it. It's also the type of thing that once you're aware of it and you think about it, you kind of, it becomes part of your process. Like, I'm not somewhere I trust. Like, I wanted to do work for someone that is a security company, and I'm doing web work for them. And I was on public Wi-Fi, and I thought, even with a firewall and a VPN, I'm not really comfortable working on this customer stuff, because heaven forbid somehow I got attacked or something happened and I leaked. And it isn't even sensitive data necessarily, but they're a security company, and that would look really bad for them if I did that. So anyway, I'm not trying to make anyone paranoid. Just one of those things that it seems like, and the other thing is, Windows has a firewall by default. It just does.
I like Windows 10's way. Windows 10, I can't talk. Windows 10's way of doing it, where it just, instead of completely blocking it, it just asks you whether or not you want it to be blocked.
Right.
Now, if there is malware on it, of course, the malware could probably find a way to bypass that. But
the other thing,
for the most part, that's a pretty good idea.
The other thing was talking about this, there's nothing wrong with having a double layer of security by turning it on your system, even if it is a desktop, because the assumption that a router is 100% secure is also a problem, because they're, much like anything else, it's firmware based. There are firmware updates. They do occasionally have a hole that comes in from time to time and things like that. That does happen. You have to remember that that's a software based piece of hardware too. So you can't always assume that you're, just because you have a router, that you're 100% protected. And many people, and we've talked about this before, I said many people don't think to check or go in and see if they have any firmware updates in their router, not only just for security, but also for function and things like that. So to me, I think it's just, it doesn't really affect your system if you set up and have your firewall turned on your desktop as a double layer of security.
TempCore brought up an interesting point in the chat as well, which is that depending on if you do use a VPN, some of them have firewall capabilities built in as well.
Right.
So it's something to look for if maybe you're running a VPN because you already have taken that step, that maybe that VPN is also giving you some sort of firewall protection as well.
I was also going to say, there is and I think Joe actually basically said it, but security in layers, that is it's one of those, well, I can only say from a military perspective, that's something that's always very well promoted. Just because somebody gets in your first perimeter, you don't necessarily want them to get into the subsequent perimeters either. But that depends on how much of a tinfoil hat you wear and how worried you are about your data and so forth. And if you monitor your logs, unless you're a weirdo that keeps up the log thing on your computer that watches the firewall, you could be one of those people, and then you're probably fine.
So that leads into the question of maybe a firewall working well with a VPN, or again, bringing up the whole question of VPNs in general.
Well, Dolphin had a good point to make in the chat. He was asking, does a VPN bypass the firewall?
Well, they're not the same thing at all. I mean, they're two completely different sets of, a VPN inherently has to get through your firewall to have connectivity. Because the firewall is so if you listen to...
So the firewall's the first layer. When you've got the firewall turned on, for the VPN to become active, it's got to pass through the firewall.
Right.
Yes.
Anything for anything to have any kind of connectivity to your system, it has to be able to get through the firewall. Yep.
The VPN is only as good as the location it's being used at too, because if you're traveling, and then you're relying on some other network, you don't know exactly how that network, is set up either. So, in theory, you would like to think that you're having some added protection with a VPN, but it's not a guarantee either.
Well, and if you also notice that there are some VPNs that'll claim something like stealth mode, and the reason for that is sometimes when you get on, like the hospital I go to, their network won't let me connect with PIA because PIA is using a specific port that their firewall won't let me connect through, right? Because they have locked down that port. But if I use Windscribe, which is the other one I use, it's using SSH port, which of course they're going to allow, or not SSH, HTTPS port 443. And so they connect over a web port, which is a allowable thing, and then I have a secure VPN, and that's the stealth mode aspect to it. So yeah, the firewall and the VPN are just they're just two completely different things. And again, if you haven't listened to Bo's conversation about this on the Destination Linux from, what was that, 3 weeks ago, Zeb? I think.
Yep.
Around there, yeah.
It's 10 minutes of him explaining the difference, way better than I ever possibly could from a 40-year veteran of the industry. It's well worth just taking the time to listen to it if you have interest in that. He does a great job explaining it.
Well, the other day there was news about private internet access being sold or being bought by Cape Technologies, I think it is. And the next day they came out with a blog post about basically trying to ease people's minds. When anytime some company like private internet access, who has built up a reputation for being secure and being for privacy, for people's privacy, if they get bought out, you're going to have some questions. You're going to have people asking some serious, hey, what is going on here questions. And they came out with this blog post to basically alleviate some of them questions, talking about how Cape Technologies, I believe it is, and forgive me if I'm getting it wrong, but they align this with the same goals as private internet access. Now, I have been a private internet access user for many years, and I've always recommended it. What do you guys think about this whole thing of them being sold?
Well, I was really concerned, and I know this really sounds stupid because they're going to do it anyway, but if you remember, Rocco, we had Crystal back on Destination Linux when you were still our host.
Yep.
And that lady struck a chord with me of being extremely honest and just single-minded in her wanting to protect the internet. Now, I've put a link to the blog post in both the Zoom chat and the YouTube chat that Crystal wrote. And I was thinking of changing because I've still got 2.5 years to go. But after having read what Crystal's written, my reaffirmation that all they're concerned about is the protection of us users, I'm sticking with them.
Well, let's put it this way. I don't think there's a reason to see that they got bought and automatically jump ship, because I don't see a better ship out there, and that is the reason why I've been using it for years, is because you have so many other VPNs out there that either say they log or say they don't log and do log, or just don't have that track record that CIA has for protecting your privacy. So, what do you guys think?
Oh, Rocco, I'm in the same situation you are. Matter of fact, I just purchased a VPN a month ago from these people. Then all of a sudden I get the news that someone bought them out. So I have very uneasy feelings with a lot of questions and no answers.
Well, read the blog post, Dan. I think it might set your mind at rest.
I did. I clicked on it so I'd have it on my browser tab.
And I know words are easy, but I don't know about how Rocco felt, but I felt this Crystal came across as such a genuine person, concerned about not just private internet access and VPNs, but protection in general of users on the internet.
But I think that goes along with everybody that I've talked to at private internet access. They all have that same mentality. The only question I have, and I know that like I said, you said she explained and outlined a lot of things in that blog post. But at the end of the day, things can change. So you're still kind of a little bit uneasy about it. But I don't think that there's a better option at the moment. So it's more of a wait and see thing.
Yeah, and you said the perfect thing there, because it's a question I've just answered somebody in YouTube chat where you said people change. What I'd like to know is, one of the concerns were that this company made adware installers. The ones where you was on Windows and you'd get a PUP, and unless you went other or more advanced, you'd find yourself, you just installed 15 Internet Explorer browsers and
toolbars
and 2 other programs. My question is, because that company has now bought 3 or 4 VPN providers to make this big conglomerate, have their ideals changed. Are they still making adware installers? Only
Doesn't
time
matter.
will tell.
Just out of curiosity, because like I figure if you don't use their other products anyway, like if it doesn't affect PIA, does it matter? Because I mean,
I think that's the point, though, right? So this post is all about having made some, agreement, and Crystal, of course, having this stance and these things being articulated. But this is business, and why is Cape doing this? I don't know their motivations. Why would they be buying these companies? I don't. This is anecdotally this is the same experience I had when LogMeIn bought LastPass. The day LogMeIn bought LastPass, I'm like, I am out of here, because LogMeIn's business practices, whether or not it was a privacy thing, they were an impossible company to deal with, and I had to deal with them on a business level with several companies I was dealing with. They were horrible to deal with. And so the minute they bought LastPass, I thought, this is never going to end well. And I could be completely wrong. I don't know. I haven't used LastPass in, 2 years ago, something like that. And I've been perfectly happy with Bitwarden. I'm glad that alternative exists, because without it, I probably would have not had the best experience.
I think that the only difference in that scenario, Eric, would be that you have so many other password managers out there that are good, and
you have
even
so many
a lot
VPN
of,
choices, though.
Even a lot of open source software managers or password managers. But yes, you do have a lot of VPNs out there, and that is part of the problem. But you don't have many that have that track record of privacy. I mean, including, like, you would say probably a couple weeks ago, you might have said NordVPN would probably be one of the top of the list of having that overall. If you talk to people, hey, NordVPN, that would be a popular choice a few weeks or months ago of a VPN. Right now, it's not, because of the track record. And that's something that you have to wait and see and let play out. And that's why I said there's not many alternatives, because you either don't have that upfront security, or you have a lack of track record where you just don't know.
No, I feel like there's something to be said for like security by obscurity, though, right? Like when you get that many people's information in one place, like it becomes a bigger, target, and like it makes it more, more rewarding to attack that thing. And like, I don't know, I think sometimes like maybe, delegating to like a smaller company or something like that for those types of things might be a wiser choice, just because.
And let's be honest, the reason,
prevalent.
Kevin, the reason that any of us have even heard of PIA is because they advertise on our podcasts that we listen to, and they spend a truckload of money on marketing in general. And so does Nord. And so does all of the other ones that you've heard of. Beyond them, and this is like server hosting, right? We've all heard of DigitalOcean. We've all heard of like the 3 top ones, right? There are 1,000 smaller companies out there that do exactly the same thing. In some cases, they do it better because they are smaller. And like Kevin's saying, maybe in the security games, security by obscurity helps a little bit. I mean, I use a couple other smaller VPNs that I think are pretty good. I'm not going to go out there. This is like politics to me. I'm very careful about VPNs and being like, oh, you should use this one because it's perfect. No, there's no such thing. There's a perfect one for me, and I'm happy with it right now. It may change a month from now, but there are so many alternatives and so many options. And I question this just enough that now I am wary of PIA. I have it. I have a 2-year subscription. I'm sure I'll use it again if I need to, but it's not going to be my first choice.
I think one thing you can look forward to is if they get sent to court again and they try to pull the logs. If they have logs and things have changed, and that has been one thing that has happened in the past. They've been taken to court, but there are no logs to give to authorities, and that's one test that will be coming up whenever that comes up.
Yep. What other VPNs do you use, Eric?
So the one I really like right now is called Windscribe, WINDSCRIBE. It's a Canadian company. They have not been tested. is entirely possible that they get called to task and the Canadian government says, now they, just like most other companies, they swear they don't have any kind of logs even to give over if they were subpoenaed to do it, but they're under Canadian jurisdiction. And as far as I know, there hasn't been any solid test of the compliance of having to give over a log, something like that. So I know a lot of people worry about any company that's in the Five Eyes, surveillance country. I'm doing a terrible job of explaining it, but just the way that basically the governments have agreed to be able to surveil their populace. And people tend to look for ones that are in certain geographic areas, certain countries, because they don't have those laws in place. I know everybody hates to hear this. I don't do anything illegal. I just don't. I'm worried about the person who's trying to see my data at the Wi-Fi hotspot, not the VPN company I'm dealing with. I have done enough investigation that I'm reasonably comfortable with these guys. They're very open, very upfront about what they do and how they do it, and that's good enough for me. Like, I'm happy with, they have servers near me. Like, it all just works. It just works fine for me, and I'm happy with that. And but that there are AirVPN is supposed to be a really good one that I keep seeing over and over and over again. I mean, if you go and look, there are some very good sites, and maybe I'll put something in discourse for folks to look at, but there are some sites that have vetted these companies, that look at the logs, look at the traffic, talk to the companies, to help normal mortals like us make these types of decisions, because otherwise, how do you know what to pick unless they've paid a bunch of marketing and it's on a podcast you've heard?
Yeah, I think Kevin brings up a good point about security through obscurity. I think that is worth pursuing, especially with all these big VPNs having problems recently. And it's also important to consider how you register for your VPN. Like, there's VPNs that you could register over Tor and you give no personal information. You can pay with Cash or Monero or completely anonymous. And those are worth pursuing if you really need that level of privacy. You just got to dig deep, do your homework a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I don't think any of us here need that level of privacy. There are situations where some people around the world do need that level. I don't think anybody here does, but definitely got to do your research. There are so many out there that are just not doing what they say they're doing. So, like, they say they're not logging, but then they are, or their logs magically appear. So you just got to do your research and pick the one that is comes out the best with that research.
So one that's come up in chat here, and one that I use quite a bit, is Proton VPN. I know they're kind of new in the VPN area, but their track record on everything else has been pretty good so far. So it's another one to consider, I think.
I've heard good things about them as well. Believe it or not, Reddit is actually a half decent place to find out
For
about
some
some of the
stuff,
stuff. Yeah. And they have a lot about VPN, personal security, firewall, sort of all that stuff. So.
Yep.
So before we go any further, Rocco,
yeah,
Tony has been diligently staring at his screen. I want to know if he has Budgie installed yet.
You know
I
that he
beat you to that
does.
question first there, buddy.
Look at him laughing.
You know that he does.
Let's hear it, Tony. No, his lips are
Well, just for the record, I've just installed it in a VPN, and very nice it is too.
Rocco, I had put it in the Zoom chat, if you wouldn't mind sharing a link to Linus Tech Tips video that he did recently about this, 240 hertz really matter. And he ran a very interesting thing. They had like this conference get together or whatever you call it. And they did a setup test with these 3 different machines. Some of them at 60 hertz, 60 FPS, 144, and then 240, whatever. And it gives you a really good insight. I know we're shifting gears a little bit, but it gives you good insight to gaming. Because a lot of times we feel like, we're just terrible at gaming and we can't hit anything or whatever. But there is a method to the madness, because the truth of the matter is like, I'm running, I've got a 60 hertz, even though it's a wide monitor, it's a 60 hertz. The one in there is 155. But the way they ran that test at 60 hertz, 60 FPS, it's actually kind of almost the worst scenario you could run when you're gaming, because by the time you see something to your eye and you react, it's already passed. It's maybe a second or two or whatever. So I think for anybody that's into gaming that would like to kind of see and learn a little bit about how the hardware talks to each other, and then between your physical reaction times, and it's just really, it was one of the best videos I've ever seen that he's done. I think it was really an education.
I've said
And
time
you
and
gotta
time
get good.
again, because I've been confronted with people that say there's no use in having your FPS in-game be higher than your monitor. And that is some
Right.
of the most utter bullcrap you could be
Yeah.
spewing, because it's not how it works. Like, just because the numbers match doesn't mean that the experience matches. And so this video that he made was really good in pointing out
Yeah.
how our input sort of circuit with these machines plays a big part in why that's not necessarily true.
Well, the thought process was, is if your CPO is pushing harder than the monitor could catch up, that's where you get into the glitches. But if you have something that, even if you got a lower FPS, but your monitor is refreshing faster, that in itself could make the difference.
Yeah.
And people who say that you don't need more FPS than your monitor can handle,
Yeah.
that's so untrue, because if you're playing a game and that game for whatever reason drops, if you're sitting there and you're maxed out at 60 frames per second and you drop down to 45, then you've got an issue. If you're sitting there at 90 and you suddenly drop down to 70, you're still fine, because your monitor is still getting enough frames to work properly. And why do you think professional gamers use high resolution monitors? Because they need that extra millisecond advantage to become that good.
So we have a,
Well,
we have
part
a
of this
solution to
test-
this problem. It's called G-Sync and FreeSync.
But there were professional gamers that he had on there during this test. That's why I think it's important for everybody to watch, because they had Paul from Paul's Hardware himself, of course, and then they had these two professional gamers in there, and even they did surprisingly bad with the lower end setup.
Even with things like G-Sync and FreeSync, though, the issue is that fluctuation is, it's good to have it be able to adapt like that, but it's also sometimes not as helpful as it's made out to be. It definitely isn't as quick as it needs to be for FreeSync to be a solution to frame dropping.
Yeah, FreeSync certainly not, and G-Sync compatible certainly not, but G-Sync hardware is perfectly fine, because they actually have actual hardware inside the monitor that adjusts the refresh rate. They're not relying on your CPU or GPU doing it.
So I'll give
Well,
it
the way
another
they
shot.
did that test, though, too, when he did the pop-up scenarios or the passing through the double doors, and they slowed down the frames so you could see what it was that they were actually depicting in there. It gives you a much clearer understanding of how the interaction with the player and the hardware talks to each other, and the difference between the machines. I just thought it was very, very well done. And you don't have to be, I think the average layperson who has no idea will get lost in it, but you don't have to be super technical to understand what he was talking about on how it was explained. At least I thought it was extremely well done.
What I find very interesting about all this, like high speed, 120 hertz, how many stuff, is those old 8 and 16-bit machines, zero latency. So somehow our new hardware can't do as good as what the Super Nintendo, the Nintendo did. So so in many ways, this
You're saying they're
$2,000
inferior.
I mean, they're also
Yes,
pushing
I'm saying-
more than 3 pixels at a time, so
Well,
Yeah, but you
so is the Super
didn't have the
Nintendo.
rendering either, Nate, that's being done in
and
today's
also-
games back then.
No, but even an issue with the Nintendo Switch thing, Wii U, whatever, the latency, like if playing a twitchy platform game, if you compare the Mario Maker on Wii U versus the real Super Nintendo, Super Mario World, you can tell the difference. The Wii U is slower. It is actually slower than a Super Nintendo when it comes to interaction.
So
I think that's just.
I think the
Go ahead.
key thing we're missing here is that the people who are really good at games are good at games despite these issues. And so ultimately my joke of just get good, that's actually the truth, right? You have to
Yeah.
every game has different reaction times. Every game has a
Yes.
different feel. you can't just say, "Well, I'm just going to get a 240 hertz monitor and suddenly I'm better." No, you're still bad. You're just bad at a faster rate.
No, but that's the point, Adam. Is if you watch this video, he explains, because even the professional gamers said that. They said, there's certain games that they had a couple of games they got on that they were not familiar with, and it does truly make a difference. So to your point, that's true.
No, I know.
But
It does. Refresh rate and all that does make a difference. But I'm still saying you have to adjust.
Paul's hardware, he did considerably better on the better hardware. Not saying he did leaps and bounds to the professional level, but it was shown in the stats that they did better on better hardware because, again, it's what your eye sees and that kind of thing. So, yeah, it may not make you a great player, but it is going to potentially make you somewhat better.
Okay,
and it
so
depends.
I guess what I'm saying is a guy playing Street Fighter V at 240 hertz and a guy playing Super Smash Brothers Ultimate on a Switch handheld, and they're both amazing, but one's really terrible hardware, one's really great. Like, they're just good at the game.
All I'm saying is,
watch
even
the
if I have
video.
a 144 hertz monitor, I'm still gonna suck at fighting.
Yeah,
games.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're just gonna suck at a higher refresh rate.
Or you could do like Rockwell, put a cheat in the game and just hit you every time. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, yeah,
I don't know. I think maybe you brought this subject up because it was a sore subject, Joe. Maybe making an excuse for your poor gameplay.
Because I don't make any bones about the fact that I go in, I don't play often enough, and me and Derek both say we're just terrible. But that's what makes it fun because we don't care enough to be that good, or be frustrated over it. But
Joe sits down at his desk. He's like, "Okay, where's my game genie?"
Kind of making the connection with sort of different games and latency, though. Like if you look at a game like CS:GO, if we don't take into account hardware, let's say we're doing it on the same hardware. If you look at CS:GO and then you look at Ballistic Overkill, CS:GO has a much higher latency. Something's going on in there that makes reactions in CS:GO, despite the fact that it being one of those quick shooters, fastest games on the internet games, slower than interactions in BOK, despite the fact that they're both very capable of being high graphics, high resolution games. So, like, while you were saying that things like the Switch and stuff don't have latency, I mean, it's not that we can't do that with our systems. It's just that we have a lot of other things going on at the same time. There's synchronization between bullets flying in the air, and there's explosions happening, and you have to keep track of like physical things moving through the game. It's much different than a sort of very easy to compute and easy to control. Granted, for the time that was a lot of work, but I mean, now we're just doing so much more. Like, I can understand why there's so much more latency.
Mm-hmm. And you got to hand it to him. Paul sat there quiet as a beast all night long, and then he just typed in the Zoom chat, "Low latency kernel."
Oh gosh!
It's like,
Oh gosh!
that one's just for you there, Nate.
Well, this subject
Not the low
may be
latency
like
kernel.
one level above low latency kernel. That's just I'm
Yeah.
just saying.
We're very close.
every week, Paul looks like one of those animated GIFs that you see at Christmas time, because if you don't see him blink or the fire twitching in the back, you wouldn't know he was moving.
Eric, did you see that Tony did give proof that Budgie is installed?
No, I was potato chipping, doing other things.
Tony, can you show him?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I asked him.
Uh-oh.
asked him that. So do you have it installed already?
That was a very deliberate motion.
Paul's got it installed too.
Paul's got it installed as well. Good man.
Yeah.
Of course. Oh. Dun,
Oh, brother.
Dun, dun.
Mine's installing.
There it is.
I
love it.
Oh, the show offs.
I love
it. Love it.
Yeah, I can't beat that because I'm using the machine, but it'll be on there tomorrow morning.
Extreme distro hop being for last word.
Yeah.
All right, Eric, you got something you want to bring up?
Yeah, we only have a couple minutes, but I've been seeing a lot of chatter about the Pine phone, and I'm curious, just with this group of people, do you see something like the Pine phone with Ubuntu Touch or Plasma Touch, or let's say any Linux-based system, as being a viable replacement for your Android or iPhone? Because I've seen a lot of people say things like, well, I won't have my banking apps, or there's specific apps on those platforms that I need that I may not have. Well, I can pretty much guarantee you're not going to have day one on a Pine phone. Is that going to be a problem for most people?
Well, I recently bought an e-corporation phone and tried to use it as my daily driver. And because I can't get my banking apps, for me, it's a no-go. I get asked too many times during the week, "Oh, Dad, lend us a tenner," and I'm done like that, and over it goes. So yeah, I couldn't use it as a daily driver because of those couple of applications. But other than that, the phone itself, it makes phone calls, it browses the internet. I can do Telegram and Twitter and all the rest of them. So in that regard, it's fine. And the fact that it doesn't phone home to Google every 15 minutes, I was getting like 3 days out of the battery, whereas I only get a day out of my current OnePlus.
All I'm saying, Zeb, is maybe if you gave a few less tenors away, you could probably get an iPhone at this point.
Oh,
Who wants an iPhone? I've had one, thank you very much, and it went back 2 days later for a full refund.
I think that the Pine phone is something that I would love to have to play with. But again, it always comes back to the apps. And that has been the Achilles heel for Linux phones forever. And if you cannot get the apps that you need, there's no way that you can use it as a daily driver. Can you use it as a second phone? Just like I have like other computers? Yes. But as far as switching it over to being the daily driver, I don't know how you do that without the apps.
Yeah, one thing that my workplace has now is a multi-phone or multi-factor authentication, and so they use an app on my phone to push out a validation for logging on. So if I don't have that, I can't get logged on. I can't get my work done, and it just until something like that shows up on for like Pine phone, there's no way.
but aren't apps just like a fancy way to do websites? I mean, when it comes down to it.
Some are for sure, and so you can do a lot of it in the browser. And
They just
Dolphin
make
brought
it
up
shorter.
Now with this multi-factor authentication, I need to have the client running on my phone,
right.
or
Yeah,
the server to send out that information.
Well, I think
there are some things you.
Go ahead, Eris.
There are some things you can do on the website. Like I know some banking sites won't let you deposit a check online. Right. You have to use the web app. I mean the mobile app for that.
Yep.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Right.
They make it to where they make it easier purposely to use the app for banking. I would hate to use, especially a lot of banks are not mobile friendly. So to use the website on a phone would be really bad experience.
So we just had a 20-minute conversation about security and and now we're all talking about doing banking on our phone. We carry around everywhere, right? So I mean,
something I never would do.
Dolphin brought this up. So I don't personally, I don't do banking on my phone. That's not touching my phone ever. So I could get by with something like a Pine phone. I don't need any funny special apps. I can just do Telegram and text messaging and phone calling, and I'm pretty good with my phone.
Well, here's another thing. I got a lot of Amazon Audible books that have DMR on them. The only way I can access that is through my phone now that I don't use Windows anymore.
That's a good point.
Well, let's not forget the phone companies don't actually update the phones too often either, do they? So there's another security risk, isn't it, doing things on your phone?
So it comes down
to Apple updates theirs all the time.
It comes down to being a trusted platform. So people, app stores have a purpose. These packages are signed. The platform itself has a level of security built in. that yes, you can turn off passwords, you can make it less secure. But from a financial institution standpoint, from a medical, healthcare provider, things that are extremely sensitive, they can use a platform like an iPhone and Android, iOS and Android, and that gives them a certain level of capabilities and control that Linux just isn't going to give them necessarily. Now, there are Linux app stores or Android, alternatives to app stores and things like that, and some applications will be on there. But and Zeb, on DL last week, you guys talked about another phone that's supposed to be coming out, and they claim to have an Android compatibility layer where you can install Android apps. Now, I'm guessing that's not going to be all of the apps that are on the Play Store, but maybe at least some of them.
doubt it. To be honest with you, I doubt that that's ever going to come to fruition, because they wanted to raise something like $280,000 and they've got $21,000 so far, and it's only coming out in Europe. Now, I can only speak for the UK, and I can't speak for American banking, but certainly it's a double-edged sword for me. I get really excited when a new version of Android's coming out, and then I think of the pain I'm going to go through, because for those 3 weeks after it's come out, I don't get no banking apps, because they really do take their time to test the new versions of Android before they re-enable the banking app on that particular platform. And I think there was one particularly bad one. It went from 8 to 9, and I lost 6 weeks of mobile banking. Why? Because they wouldn't let the application work until they were 100% satisfied that they've got all their security levels back.
So I'm no expert, but wasn't that kind of one of the points of how Android's development and application rollout model was supposed to work, is that you don't have problems like these when new versions of Android come out? Or are you telling me that they intentionally block it on new Android versions rather than it just not working?
They will, you'll go to fire it up and then it will switch off again, because they haven't been able to enable certain features that are. So it basically, whether they switch it off or it just doesn't work until they update the app, the
But
effect
there's no
is the
way
same.
of knowing which has happened.
No, the effect is the same.
Ooh.
And you could jump on a Twitter, you jump on their support sites, and they say, yeah, we really apologize for the delay. We're just ensuring that the new security protocols are there and working in the latest version. And until they roll out that latest version, you don't get your banking app. So I had to revert to the old-fashioned computer, and that's just something that online banks do in the UK.
Why don't you just bank on the computer anyway?
Because when I'm driving my car down a motorway, it's a bit difficult.
So I just want to say, I just want to say,
instead of texting and driving, you're banking and driving. It's way safer.
I was thinking
no,
the
but
same
I can pull over and pull over at a service station and then text my kids the money they want. If they got to wait 3 hours for me to get home, there'll be a whole hell of a break list. It's all.
I'll give you my
I would
number.
love to
I'd
continue
love that.
this conversation, but we are out of time. Mitchell, last comment, Mitchell.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I really want a Pine phone because I think I could make it my daily driver. I don't do mobile banking and I don't use social media and very many apps. As long as it has a camera and I can text people, I'm happy.
There you
That's
go.
all. Yeah.
All right. I mean, I would love to keep the conversation going, but it's time to go. So we could go for like 3
Rocco,
hours.
what's with all these rules, man?
I'm telling you, structure is terrible sometimes, but
what is this?
It's the way it is. But everybody gets the last word. PZ.
I just love this group. I think it's absolutely awesome. We get so many different perspectives. And I know it's an old cliche now, but it really is the highlight of my week. I love you, boys and girls. See you all next week.
Dan.
Thanks everybody for your feedback tonight. We really appreciate it. It'll hopefully get some changes going forward. So appreciate everybody trying out Lubuntu and providing that. I'll echo what Zeb said. I mean, everybody here is great. So really appreciate it.
Eris, last word.
Thank you very much for the stream. I remember I used Lubuntu LTS 1604 for like around a year, and I'm very grateful for that. Thank you, Dan, for answering all our questions, being here. And thank you, Simon, for Lubuntu.
Eric?
thanks to the Ubuntu team, as everyone has said. Keep up the good work. The most important part was it was a stable system, which you nailed that. No issues. And you can only get better from here, which is fantastic. And Dan, I know you, so I'm going to be bugging you with, with some things. And as Zeb said so eloquently that I can't, and I don't have the fun accent either. Sorry. You guys are fantastic. I look forward to this all week, and I'm glad to see your faces, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great week, everyone.
Paul.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I always learn something on these shows, and as you can see, I already have it installed, so maybe I'll get to play with it this week.
Nice. Peter.
My fellow Americans, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you. Joe, last word.
Well, thanks as always for another fabulous week. And Dan, thank you for, the input. And I think Ubuntu is really going places. I couldn't help but think while we were doing all our reviews of these each week that to have a conversation on trying to find the final little paper cuts, as we put them now, to kind of make them that much better. I mean, think about where we are today. I've said this before, to where we were how many years ago, and how far this has come to where we're just trying to tweak it and polish it up and make it better. I mean, that says so much for Linux and the community of people. And as always, I enjoy this every week too. Thank you again so much. See you guys next week, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Mitchell.
Yeah, I just want to thank Dan again. Ubuntu is fantastic. It's one of those distros that is reliable. I know it's going to be there. Like Slackware and Ubuntu are the two that I always know I can count on. And so just thank you for the hard work.
Very nice. Kevin.
Yeah, Dan and everybody on the Ubuntu team, keep doing what you're doing. It's good work. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
Tony.
Thanks, Rocco, for doing this. You've all ruined my last word. So I'm going to have to come up with something different now. I don't know what, but still. But anyway, to echo what Zeb said, I love all you guys. It's a great group. And it's a cliche, like Zeb said, but I do look forward to this every week. It is something that sort of is to look forward to at the end of every week for me. I'm looking forward to trying Budgie. I think I already know what the problem I will have with it because I have tried it in the past, but we'll give it a fresh go with an open mind. And I look forward to seeing you all next week.
Dan Kelly.
As usual, Rocco, thank you for putting on this show here and bringing us all together. You too, Zeb, Dan. Dan, keep going with the Ubuntu there. It's coming into its own. It's really a nice distro, and I think it'll be a really nice addition to the Ubuntu family. And with that said, everybody have a safe week and take care.
Colin.
Well, thanks, Rocco and Co. Or was that Rock and Co? I don't know which way you would say that. But looking forward, this is going to be an interesting week. I'm going to be trying the transition from Ferren OS to Ferren Next to see how that works for him. So he's asked me to try that out. I'm going to be trying Kwin on Ubuntu as well, see how that goes. One thing I would like to say is I forgot to mention, nice job on the paperwork, on the wallpaper, whoever that was. It was a really nice wallpaper. I don't know who the runner-up was. I'm not sure if it was that one with the bird and the little animal on it. Was that the runner-up, Dan?
That was one of the finalists. I don't know if we really ranked the ones that came in behind the winner.
Right.
But yeah, so that was one of them. Yep.
Yep. So awesome job on the wallpaper there. And yep, thanks for this platform. It's really good to be here every week. Really enjoy it. And everybody take care and see you next week.
Steve. Password.
As always, thanks everybody for the support when you join me. It is a great community. I really enjoy this. I really enjoy everybody. So if you're in the States, have a good, happy Thanksgiving this week. If not, have a good week anyway.
Chicken.
All right. Well, it's been a lovely time, and I appreciate the chat. It's good to see that people got on with Ubuntu. I know that they've been LXDE for a long time now, but I feel like everything has gone better than people were worried. It wouldn't at first. So I'm really happy to see that, and I'm glad that people are super receptive of it. I don't usually self-advertise here, but I wrote a Medium post about toxic behavior in Linux communities, and there are a couple of light swear words in there, but it's nothing too. There's no f-bombs, things like that. But if you guys want to give it a read, I've posted it in the Telegram group, and yeah.
Can I put that in YouTube for you, Chicken? Because your
please.
insight is always superb.
Nate, sir.
Thank you again for having me. I enjoyed Lubuntu. Dan, I hope that you continue with it and keep molding it and shaping it and refining it. It's going to be, I think it's going to be great. And I like the competition for that, against the XFCE crowd. I am not that I have any ill will against XFCE, but it moves at the pace of Pondwater. So it's nice to see something else maybe kind of light a fire underneath it a little bit and have a little competition between them. So appreciate it. It's great seeing all of you. You're my nerd family, my nerd family, I should say. And so I look forward to next week. And happy Thanksgiving.
There you go. Chris, last word.
Just want to say I'm one step behind Tony here. So, but sorry I was late tonight, but other than that, hope everybody has a good week, and see you next week.
Adam.
Hey, good show. Kind of came in late. It's all good, no problem. Eat food this Thursday. Enjoy.
Eat food.
Nice. Numeno, is that your name? Numeno? I hate to butcher the name. All right. Maybe
Muted.
he's not even there.
He's still muted.
All right. That's going to wrap it up for us. Thank you, Dan, and all of the Lubuntu devs for everything that you do for us. We try these distros, and sometimes we can forget, all of the work that goes into it. And what would we do on a Saturday night if we didn't have that to do? Happy Thanksgiving to everybody in the U.S. And if you want to celebrate Thanksgiving outside of the U.S., that's your problem. Linux Spotlight last week, if you haven't seen it, or last week, this past week was IG Infinitely Galactic, and he's
Brilliant.
somebody
Good one.
that I've been watching for years.
Mhm.
His videos are really well articulated and have some awesome thoughts that maybe you don't think about when you're looking at things. So check that Linux Spotlight out. But this week, it's Linux Spotlight. I am so excited to see. This is an episode that I've been waiting to do since I started Linux Spotlight. So Wednesday at 6 a.m. will be Rob Collins for a reunion talk,
cool.
basically, of
Rob Collins, wow.
me and him getting together and talking just about
Cool.
Linux like we used to. So
All
that
right.
I'm super excited to release.
Very
It's
nice.
almost exciting as the Beatles coming back together.
Yeah. And that's going to wrap it up for us. We are trying Ubuntu Budgie 1910 for this week. You can join us and try it. You don't have to. You can join the Zoom group, even if you don't try to do the distro challenge. But that's going to be it. We will see you all next week. But until then, long live Linux.
See you all.
Bye, everybody.
Later, all.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Take care.
See yous.
Bye.
Bye.
Gobble, gobble.
Bye.